My name is Jamie Pittman, and I am Program Director for Student Development for the Rawls College of Business Career Management Center. This workshop is on the basics of interviewing. One of the most important things when it comes to interviewing is the preparation part. I think that there's a lot of things you can do to prepare, and you really need to think about spending some time so that you can put your best foot forward when it comes to interviewing. Some of the things you can do to prepare, we're going to talk about today in this workshop. So you can schedule a mock interview. You can research the company. You can review some of the more commonly asked questions. You can think about yourself, know yourself. What are your strengths? What's your personality type? What do you want? Where do you see yourself? Being able to arrive early, and also how to dress for the interview. We're going to dive into some of this stuff. So if you caught this on another interview or another video, then this is just kind of a recap for you. If this is the first time for you to hear this, then great, because it's very important for you to know how to dress for your interview. So unless they tell you that it's okay to dress casually for an interview, which typically you will not hear that if you're doing an interview for anything business related. It's not typical for you to hear that. I have heard a couple of students say that they were told that they could dress casual, but most of the time you should go ahead and prepare to dress what we call business professional. So what you're seeing here is this is what we expect for women. So these are some examples here. Basically, we're talking about a suit. So jacket and pants or jacket and skirt. You do not have to wear pantyhose, so that's nice. You definitely want to wear a closed-toed shoe. Okay, open-toed seems to be a little bit more casual. And think about the blouse that you're wearing underneath the jacket. It doesn't have to be white or gray, even though that's what you see here. As long as it's a nice-looking blouse, you don't want anything with too crazy of a pattern or too crazy colors, because you don't want to stand out in that kind of way. Just make sure that it looks nice, looks professional, and if it's nicely pressed if it needs to be pressed. Men, it's the same for you. You're going to need to wear a suit, okay? So typically for a guy, when you're talking about a professional suit, you're talking about matching jacket and pants. You may see people that have on a jacket and khaki pants, and that's really more of a business casual look. So for a business professional, you actually want a matching suit. Think about the shirt that you're wearing under the suit. The shirt should be nicely pressed. Also does not have to be white. It also doesn't have to be a solid pattern. So I have seen some pattern shirts that go under the suit. As long as it goes well with your tie, then you're good, okay? So if you're not sure about that, then get some help from whatever retail store that you purchase your suit from. Keep in mind, you want to stay away from any crazy colors on your tie or crazy colors or patterns, crazy patterns on your shirt, okay? So guys, one of the biggest problems I see is that you may forget to press your shirt. Just because you're off at college is not an excuse for you not to have a pressed shirt, and employers will notice this, okay? So take that to heart. You definitely need to have your shirt pressed underneath your suit jacket. Colors of suits is another question that comes up sometimes. So when you're looking at this, you see navy, you see gray, you see black. Those are the typical colors that you're going to see in a suit, and pinstriping, sometimes you'll see that. That's also fine. Another way for you to prepare for your interview, which is probably the most important thing, and I think sometimes this gets overlooked by students if they're busy or stressed or feel like they don't have enough time, but it's very necessary, and that is to research the company. So what does that mean? You need to understand the company. You need to know who you're applying for a job with. They expect you to know some about the company. They don't expect you to know everything, but you need to know more than the company's name. And how do you do that? Visit the company's website. Usually there is an About Us section on a website. That's the first place I would tell you to go, and just start reading about the company, knowing a little bit about the size of the company, when they were founded, what is the main purpose of the company. And you can get a lot of good information just in that one little section on a company's website. Also, usually they'll have something listed there about their mission or their value statement. Those are also great things for you to know. If you can pick up on a couple of key words out of their mission statement or value statement that you can align yourself with, those are also great things to bring up in an interview, because they can see that you've actually done some research on the company, but also that you might fit in very well with them if you can kind of pick up on some of those keywords in their mission or value statement. Learn the company's lingo. And what I mean by that is sometimes companies will have acronyms that stand for certain things. And sometimes this falls into their mission or value statement. If they have any kind of acronym, you probably need to know what that acronym stands for. That would be very impressive for them, for you to be able to pick up on that and throw out a couple of those things in the interview and show how you can align yourself with that. Search websites such as Glassdoor or LinkedIn. See where else you can find information about the company. Even sometimes companies will have a YouTube channel, and you can go there, and a lot of times they may have videos. Sometimes they'll have professional development videos, and that's fantastic if you can find that. But also just about their company culture. So you can kind of get a sneak peek into what the company's like. And sometimes when you find a video like that, you can see, you know, what does it look like inside the company, and how do the employees, how are they dressing? What does the culture look like? So doing a little research for yourself to see, you know, see what I can find out about this company and see if it's somewhere where you think you would fit in. And then last but not least is to study the job description. This is one of the most overlooked pieces of information that I find that students are missing out on. The job description is extremely important. Every job that's listed for an opening should have a job description attached to it. Some are longer than others, but it should only be about a couple of pages. But what's important about the job description is it's full of keywords that will give you clues as to what they might ask you in an interview. There should be a section about requirements or qualifications or necessary skills. You know, they may call them different things, but usually it's just going to either be a paragraph or bullet points listing out skills that they expect you to have, okay? This is a great way for you to start preparing for your interview, because you can start thinking of examples of how you have used that skill, learned that skill, or any, you know, success stories you have surrounding that skill. And then the rest of the job description may just be kind of giving you an example of what you would be doing in the job. Those are things that they don't necessarily expect you to already know how to do. Some of those things you will be trained on. But the job description is extremely important when preparing for an interview. Another thing is to remember the STAR method. The STAR method is situation, task, action, result. And what that is that is a method for you to use when you're answering interview questions in an interview. So you want to stay away from short answers or yes or no, okay? That doesn't really tell them anything. So if they're asking about if you have a particular, if you've used a particular skill, or if you have a particular skill, don't just say yes, but tell them how you've used that skill. Or if they've asked if you have a certain experience doing something, then give them an example of how you've done that, okay? Don't just say, yeah, I've done that, and mention what it was. They want to know how you did it. What did you learn from it? That's what the STAR method is. The STAR method is taking it to the next level and actually going into a little bit of detail about your answer. Now, you want to stay focused with your answer. You don't want to chase a bunch of rabbits and go off into a big story that they don't need those kinds of details. But you want to give them enough detail to show them that, yes, you do have experience in that area and that maybe you've learned something from it, or what, you know, I call it a success story is basically what it is. I find that students typically will not talk enough about their experiences because they think they're talking too much. So as long as you can keep your story focused and tell us what your successes are relating to whatever they're asking, that skill or experience, then that's the key for it right there. Also, the next thing you want to do with that is tie it into the job that you're interviewing for. So not only tell them what you've done in the past, but tell them how you're going to do it for them. Tell them how you're going to bring value to them. That's what they want to, those are the people they want to hire. They want to hire people that are going to come bring value to the company. It's also good to review some commonly asked questions. These are just kind of, there's just a tip of the iceberg there. If you want another list, you can check out our handbook, and we have our handbook listed online under rawlscmc.com under student resources, and we have several pages on interviewing, by the way. And we have a more extensive list of common questions, but really these are ones you need to practice. And the thing about it is if you practice these questions ahead of time, they're going to know you've prepared. When you get into an interview and you're just winging it and they're asking you a question you've never thought about it before, it happens, but most of these questions you should have thought about ahead of time, and you're going to have a lot better formulated answer. So what do some of those look like? One of the first things they're going to ask you, or they may say, is tell me about yourself. And this is just a way to kick the interview off, really just an introduction. I see students get stumped on this one right away all the time. Don't let that one intimidate you. It's not a big deal. It's not time for you to go down your entire resume or tell them your life story. It's really time for you to just introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about what you're currently involved in, and tell them why are you applying for that job? What are you looking for? Okay. You could also throw in there, maybe something that, a little bit, a hobby you're interested in, something like that. It's really an introduction and letting them get to know you a little bit before they dive into some of these a little more nitty-gritty interview questions. I really want you to be able to tell them what you know about the company. They may not straight up ask you that, but you've done your research, right? So you need to be able to find opportunities to tell them something you've learned about their company and that interests you in the course of that interview. You need to know what your short and long-term career goals are. It's going to come out in some kind of question, whether it's where do you see yourself in 5 years, those types of things. But they want to know, where are you headed? Are you a go-getter? Do you have goals? Do you have aspirations? Are you just the type of person that you want things to fall in your lap and happen to you? Or are you going to go out there and are you going to make things happen? Okay, so that's what they're trying to see when they ask those types of questions. So they want to see that you have some initiative and that you do have some appropriate career goals. No, you're not going to be manager in a year, and you're not going to be president in a year. Know that you're going to come into a company and there's going to be time for you to learn and settle in, and they want to see that. They want to see that you have a hunger to learn and that you're coachable, but you're also excited about the opportunity. Strengths and weaknesses. This is very, very common. They want to know, what are you good at? So you need to know what you're good at. If you're not really sure what you're good at, then you need to take some assessments. We do have one called Strengths Quest. It's a fantastic assessment that helps you to know what it gives you your top 5 strengths, in fact, not just one strength. So it helps you to come up with, okay, I knew I was good at that, but I didn't really know how to talk about it. So that's one good thing about that assessment. You need to come into an interview being able to tell the company more about yourself other than that you're hardworking, because we hear that all the time. I hear that from students all the time. We know you're hardworking. Okay, college students have to be hardworking to make it through. So we need to know, what are your strengths and abilities? What are you going to do for the company? What value are you going to bring? And then on the flip side of that, everyone has weaknesses. Okay, why do they ask that question? Well, they could possibly really want to know what your weaknesses are. You've got to be careful when you're answering the weakness question. I don't think you need to come up with a whole list of weaknesses, because hopefully you can just talk about one, turn the corner, and just go on with the next question. But if they do ask you that, you do need to come up with a weakness that you can speak to, that is something that you've recognized it's a weakness, but you're also working on it. So how have you worked to overcome that weakness? What have you learned from it? And also, you really don't want to talk about any weaknesses that would keep you from being a good employee, okay? Because we all have weaknesses, but you really don't want to bring up the ones that might make them not want to hire you. Okay, most of the questions that they ask you are going to come in the style of behavioral style questions. They may start off the interview pretty conversational and just, trying to get to know you, trying to get you to relax a little bit and just being a little bit chit-chatty. But then they're going to turn into these behavioral style questions where they're going to want to know specific examples of when you've used certain qualities. Okay, so that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with the STAR method. You're going to want to give them examples. And when we're talking about, okay, what skills are we talking about? What are some things they want to know? So you want to focus on these important competencies. So we have leadership, professionalism, oral and written communication, teamwork, critical thinking, and problem solving. And these are just a few of the competencies that they're expecting you to have. Okay, these skills can't be trained. Okay, yeah, you can build on these skills once you get into your full-time work or even into your internships. But these are things that you're supposed to be building now while you're in your part-time jobs, internships, and just during your college career. So think about ways that you have built, how are you showing leadership? What are some things you're involved in? So already have those stories ready, because it's going to come up. These 5 competencies are so common that they get asked about. It doesn't matter what job you apply for. Doesn't matter what field it is. These are so common, they're going to come up in any interview. So that's why you need to prepare for them ahead of time. I'd like for you to think through these and come up with 2 of your top success stories in each of these areas, so you're ready to go when that question is asked. So what happens if you get stumped? It happens. They are going to ask you a question at some point in time that you did not prepare for. You can't prepare for every single question, okay? So if you get stumped, it's okay. Pause. You can say, that's a great question. Let me take a moment to think about that. Let me think about that for a second. That's fine. It's okay. Sometimes you will have to think. You don't want to do a whole lot of them asking them to repeat the question. That's not good because that's stalling. They know you're stalling. If you're not sure about a question, like let's say they ask you a question and you're not sure what they mean, it's okay to ask for clarification on that question. Another stall tactic is to come back, ask if you can come back to that question. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend you skip questions or opt out of a question. You need to come up with something. Okay, so that's why in practice interviewing is so important, because it helps train your brain to think like that. It helps you to be able to come up with answers on the spot, okay? And sometimes that's what happens. They're going to ask you a question, you didn't prepare for it, but you need to come up with something. Above all else, be yourself. This is one of the most important things when I'm sitting across a student doing a mock interview. If they're acting like a robot and they're just, I'm just staring at a wall and they're just talking, I'll stop it right there and I'll say, you know what, let's just visit. And I'll just try to get their personality to come out. And then I say, okay, this is who I want to talk to. The person I'm seeing right now, as you and I are just sitting here chit-chatting, that's who I want to talk to in the interview. So remember that. You need to be yourself in the interview. Have fun. I can't think of a time that I've been in a mock interview where I didn't laugh, okay? So some of the time you're going to get people interviewing you that aren't as fun. It happens. But try to have fun as much as possible. Be conversational. Let your smile shine, okay? They want to see happy, friendly faces. If you're nervous, you just have to fight through it, okay? And that's why practicing helps so much. Know your value. If you don't feel like you're valuable and you don't know what your value is, you're going to have a really hard time convincing someone to hire you. Okay, so you need to show energy and show interest. They want to hire people who are excited about their company, excited about the opportunity, and have the energy to get the job done. Okay, that's what they're looking for. So closing the deal, be sure you have questions at the end of the interview. Very important. If they say, do you have any questions for us? And you say, no, I'm all good. That's not good, okay? They want you to have questions. Not too many, okay? So I would say, 3 to 4. And you need to think about some of these. You can Google this. There's tons of ideas on the internet. But you want to show interest in the company, show interest about the position. You could even show interest in whoever's interviewing you. Thank them for their time. If you want the job, you need to tell them. I can't tell you how many recruiters have told me, students forget to ask for the job. They just sit there and smile and say thank you, but they don't ask me for the job. And I'm like, you know what? That's so important, because how are they going to know if you really want the job? You may have applied for it, but that doesn't mean you really want it, okay? You may have just applied for it because it was an opening. So if you're really feeling it and you want that job, there's nothing wrong with telling that recruiter, you know what, I'm so excited about this. You are my top pick. And, I really want this job. Now, you don't want to look desperate. They can also smell desperation. So there's a difference in being excited about an opportunity and being desperate. Be sure and ask, what are the next steps? This gives you an idea of what to expect. Okay, so time frame. They may tell you, we're going to be making a decision within the next week. They may tell you, you've got 7 more rounds of interviews. This is a great way to find out what is going on. Okay, so this will help you to know how many more interviews are there, when should I hear something, that type of thing. Ask for their business card or email address. You need a way to be able to get a hold of that person, because you're going to need to send a thank you. But also, when you need to follow up, possibly, you want to find out what's the best way to contact this person. So do they want to be emailed? Do they want you to call them? Do they care if you text them? I've heard from several recruiters lately, especially the way things are right now, they don't mind if you text them, but I would find out for sure first if they prefer that method of communication. Potential pitfalls would be, don't take your cell phone in there. If you do, be sure it's turned off, or whatever kind of interview you're doing, make sure that there's no distractions. No gum. Please do not have gum in your mouth. Limit your slang terms and filler words. The most common thing I see is students using filler words like, so, those types of things. You've heard me say several throughout this, but I really try to limit those. No slang terminology. Don't get into personal information that you should never tell them anything, any personal information about you. They don't need to know any of that, and they can't use any of that in the hiring decision. Failure to go into enough detail. Okay, I come across students all the time that feel like they're talking too much, so they don't say enough. And if you don't tell them what your value is, then why would they want to hire you? Also, inquiring about salary and benefits too early. This isn't anything you would want to talk about on a first round interview by any means. Okay, so sometimes when you get further down the line and you get into some final interviews, salary benefits probably not, but salary is probably going to come up. I would wait for the employer to initiate that, and sometimes it doesn't come up at all, and you just have to wait till you get the job offer, and that's okay. But definitely don't start out with wondering about what's in it for me. Lastly, don't forget to thank you and follow up. Be sure to send a handwritten thank you note or an email within 24 hours of the interview. If you are sending an email, make sure that you remember it needs to be professionally written email. It's not like you're texting your friend, okay? So you want to make sure that you keep it professional. Bring up something that interested you or stood out to you from the interview. Don't just say thank you for your time. They hear that all the time, but you want to bring something up, so maybe it helps remind them who you are if you talk about something specific that was talked about in your interview. So those are some great interview tips. It was really more of a general workshop on interviewing. So be sure and check out my other videos on telephone interviewing and virtual interviewing.